Hello, my sweet peas and sugar dumplings. Welcome to another story time with shiningnathan. And we're continuing our spooky month of spooky tales with another story from H.P. Lovecraft. And this one is What the Moon Brings. Now, this is a shorter tale, so I'm going to give you a little bit of the history of it and a little bit of history of H.P. Lovecraft before we begin. Now, if you found me organically via this platform, I'm glad you're here. If you follow from TikTok, thank you so much, honey. Now, before we begin, make sure that notification bell's on, you've subscribed, and leave in the comments where you're listening from, what you're doing. Now, you can pause here to get some snacks and get all cozied up, or you can sit me down to go about your day doing what you can do while you listen to me talk. So let's get into the history, a little bit about the story, a little bit about H.P. Lovecraft, and get into what the moon brings. Now, this story is a shorter one, and it's sometimes considered to be unfinished because it's one of the tales based on Lovecraft's dreams. And people believe that it's a fragment of a greater story that just got taken to publishing and it's unfinished. Others debate whether it is or is not. Now, despite its short length, What the Moon Brings has a shape that recalls the structure of a lot of Lovecraft's earlier dream stories, because a lot of Lovecraft's stories and prose have been written from dreams he has had. And an interesting thing about some of these stories is Lovecraft, both his parents, he lived to see them both be institutionalized at a time period of the early 1910s, 20s, when mental health care was still very much in its infancy and very rudimentary in insane asylums. And so he had a great fear that he himself would eventually wind up in an insane asylum. And so people feel that these tellings of these stories were his way of trying to analyze what was going on in his own mind and see what is happening within it. And some of these tales have a lot about running away from the madness, or you would rather die than go mad. If you notice, a lot of these works have that type of plot ending to them, where one would rather die than lose their mind. And this is something that H.P. Lovecraft fears and battles with throughout chunks of his life. So now, with that being said, let's get into What the Moon Brings by H.P. Lovecraft. I hate the moon. I am afraid of it. For when it shines on certain scenes familiar and loved, it sometimes makes them unfamiliar and hideous. It was in the spectral summer when the moon shone down on the old garden where I wandered. The spectral summer of narcotic flowers and humid seeds of foliage that bring wild and many-colored dreams. And as I walked by the shallow crystal stream, I saw unwanted ripples tipped with yellow light, as if those placid waters were drawn on in resistless currents to strange oceans that are not in the world. Silent and sparkling, bright and baleful, those moon-cursed waters hurried, I knew not whither. Whilst from the embowered banks white lotus blossoms fluttered on by one in the opiate night wind, and dropped despairingly into the stream, swirling away horribly under the arched cavern bridge, and staring back with the sinister resignation of calm, dead faces. And as I ran along the shore, crushing sleeping flowers with heedless feet and maddening ever by the fear of unknown things and the lure of the dead faces, I saw that the garden had no end under the moon. For by day the walls were there, stretched out only vast new vistas of trees and paths, flowers and shrubs, stone idols and pagodas, and bendings of the yellow litten stream, past grassy banks and under grotesque bridges of marble. The lips of the dead lotus faces whispered sadly and bade me follow. Nor did I cease my steps till the stream became a river, and joyed amidst marshes of swaying reeds and beaches of gleaming sand, the shore of a vast and nameless sea. Upon the sea the hateful moon shone, and over its unvocal waves weird perfumes brooded, and as I saw therein the lotus faces vanish, I longed for nets that I might capture them and learn from them the secrets which the moon had brought upon the night. But when the moon went over to the west, and the still tide ebbed from the swirling shore, I saw in the light old spires that the waves almost uncovered, and white columns gay with festoons of green seaweed, and knowing that to this sunken place all the dead had come, I trembled. I did not wish to again to speak with the lotus faces. Yet when I saw afar out in the sea a black condor descend from the sky to seek rest on a vast reef, I would fain have questioned him and asked him of those whom I had known when they were alive. This I would have asked him had he not been so far away. But he was very far away, and could not be seen at all when he drew nigh that gigantic reef. So I watched the tide go out under the sinking moon, and saw gleaming the spires, the towers, and the roofs of the dead, dripping city. And as I watched, my nostrils tried to close against the perfume-conquering stench of the world's dead, for truly in this unplace, forgotten spot had all the flesh of the churchyards gathered for puffy sea worms to gnaw and glut upon. Over those horrors the evil moon now hung very low, but the puffy worms of the sea need no moon to feed by. And as I watched the ripples that told of the writhing of worms beneath, I felt a new chill from afar out where the condor had flown, as if my flesh had caught a horror before my eyes had seen it. Nor had my flesh trembled without cause, for when I raised my eyes, I saw that the waters had ebbed very low, shewing most of the vast reef whose rim I had seen before. And when I saw that this reef was but the black basalt crown of a shocking Eagle, whose monstrous forehead now shone in the dim moonlight, and whose vile hooves must paw the hellish ooze miles below. I shrieked and shrieked, lest the hidden face rise above the waters, and lest the hidden eyes look at me after the slinking away of the lurid and treacherous yellow moon. And to escape this relentless thing, I plunged gladly and unhesitatingly into the stinking shallows, where amongst weedy walls and sunken streets fat yellow sea worms feast upon the world's dead. And that was What the Moon Brings by H.P. Lovecraft. I hope you enjoyed this telling, and as I talked to you at the beginning, you can see where H.P. is recounting this dream. And you can see that as this dream progresses, it gets more and more wild, and you can infer that he would rather die than continue that madness. As you see that creature, it's indicative of going mad, insane. And you can feel how it does feel like it's unfinished, a piece of a greater piece. And so this is one of those interesting little nuggets of H.P. Lovecraft's work. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it to you. If you did, feel free to comment below. And a special thank you to all my patrons who make this all possible. Without them, I wouldn't be able to create this content or pay my rent or feed me and my cat. If you enjoyed my content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon for as low as $3 to $5 a month. Patreon.com/shiningnathan, where you get the early releases of all these, affirmations, and much, much more. Plus, you can text with me there. Anyway, I hope you well. Take care. And don't go mad by moonlight.